Yobie, the last time you were here, you gave us information about the various different types of COVID testing, which is very important around the world, but especially here in the US. But ultimately, what everyone's waiting for, they're holding their breath for a vaccine. And recently, we've been hearing a lot of progress on this front. Can you give us updates on that?
We have made significant progress in the testing space. And in fact, I would have to say that there is some credit to be given to the current administration with regards to Operation Warp Speed. They've done a lot of things that were good and correct. For example, the federal government worked with 4 different vaccine candidates so that to spread the risk. And that I think is very important because it encourages suppliers to continue vaccine research and know that if they have a successful vaccine, the vaccine does have a market. That's number one. Number two, again, there's very good news on the vaccine front. We have 2 companies, both of which are here in the United States. One is called Pfizer, and they have a vaccine that has been in clinical trials. They say has an effectivity rate of about 90%. And then the second company is another company called Moderna. And Moderna has likewise announced that they were successful in their clinical trials with a success rate of roughly 94%. I know people say, well, we'll try the one that's 4% better. But frankly, both of these are effective, if that is true. To put this in perspective, the flu vaccine is generally only 50 to 60% effective. And so to have a vaccine that has that is effective 90% of the time is a big deal. However, we have a couple of challenges with both vaccines, right? The challenge really is the transport and distribution of vaccines. The Pfizer vaccine, and by the way, both these vaccines, for the audience sake, are called mRNA vaccines. These vaccines have never been done before, ever. This is brand new research, brand new science, and we're glad because these vaccines would be easier to manufacture in the long run. However, the challenges are, again, transport and logistics. Let me explain why. The Pfizer vaccine has to be transported in ultra cold temperatures, and that is minus 70 to minus 90 degrees centigrade. You can imagine how cold that is. The Moderna vaccine is slightly better, and I say it's slightly better because you can transport it in minus 20 degrees centigrade. So it's a lot easier. There's a big difference between the 2 vaccines. We do not have the facilities to transport vaccines at minus 90. That's just a fact. However, the Moderna vaccine, which can be transported and stored at minus 20 degrees centigrade, we have that capacity. To give our lessons and folks out in the Philippines a quick lesson, there are about 5 settings when you go and store or transport anything in the lab, right? One is room temperature, right? And one is cold temperature, and cold temperature is similar to what you have in your refrigerator, right? And the next thing is freezing temperature. Freezing temperature is 0 to minus 20 degrees centigrade. And ultra cold is the 4th one, and that is minus 70 to minus 90 degrees centigrade. The 5th one is liquid nitrogen. So it's super cold. And that's only used for the transport of human specimen. So for example, eggs, that are for IVF treatment. So you would transport the eggs in liquid nitrogen or sperm. Again, in IVF treatment is transported in liquid nitrogen. The problem again is to transport something in -70 to -90 degrees centigrade is incredibly hard. Our drugstores, right, and you're talking about CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, et cetera, do not have these facilities in order to do this. Most of these drugstores and potential distribution channels have freezers, but they by no means can handle a -70 to -90 temperature requirement.
Right. And so, Yobie, with that said, how realistic is it that a vaccine will be available very soon? Or how soon will these vaccines be available to the public?
So there's something that's very important. Vaccines don't stop the coronavirus. Vaccination does. So yeah, even if we had all the vaccine in the world, we have challenges, right? The first challenge is to get people to actually agree to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. And unfortunately, the political environment has contributed to a lot of fear and doubt with regards to a new vaccine. That's number one. Number two, again, the transport of these vaccines is very difficult because of the temperature requirements. Both Moderna and Pfizer have said that they might be able to have 20 million doses as soon as December or January, first quarter of next year. But in the United States, we have a population of roughly 320 million, right? So it's not even close. I do think that the priority for vaccination will be first responders, our nurses, our doctors, and even janitors that work in hospital or clinic settings. And the second priority will be people who are older, mostly those in nursing homes. And probably the third priority would be people, and this is a guess at this point, anybody over 60, because the risk for fatalities increases greatly as you get over the age of 60, and it just goes up from there. So that to the question of when will this reach the general population, I would dare say probably Q3 of next year, if ever. And it's because of the complexity of the logistics and the transport.
Right. So we are hearing from most people, though, that they will not get either vaccine as soon as they're out. They're worried that the process may have been rushed or there hasn't been enough time to study the side effects. Your thoughts on that? Would you get the vaccine?
If the government, and when I mean the government, trusted people in the government, such as Dr. Anthony Fauci, tell me that the vaccine is safe, I will take the vaccine. Unless I have the assurance from trusted scientists, again, such as Dr. Anthony Fauci, then I won't take it. But if we have the assurance of Dr. Fauci and the assurance of the drug companies and the FDA that is not tainted by politics, then I would take the vaccine. I have no fear of the vaccine as long as it's properly vetted, tested, and recommended by the scientific and public health community.
Thank you so much for saying that, Yobie, because the sad thing about this whole handling of the pandemic is the politicization of it. And that's what we're struggling with. And which leads me to probably one of my last questions to you, just for the purpose of this interview. There is news of vaccine and it's promising, but people still need to be careful. However, we see the numbers going up. When you look at the news now, it's like it's the biggest news in America right now. We have an uptick in the trend of number of cases of coronavirus. Are people just not paying attention? What do you think is going on?
Well, the explanation is not so difficult. We do not have a national strategy to fight this virus. And because we do not have a national strategy, it's left up to the states and the governors of each state to mandate or not mandate um, some very basic public health guidance. Wear a mask, keep distance, avoid large crowds, wash your hands. Um, the unfortunate thing is our country is made out of 50 plus two territories governments, right? And we cannot stop people from moving from one state to another state. Mm-hmm. So remember, this coronavirus started with one case, one case that started in Washington state. And it is now close to 12 million cases. The point is, this vaccine, this virus is very, very infectious. And because people move around, non-compliance in one state greatly affects the ability of people in another state to actually do a mandate. Let me give you an example, a very concrete example. But in the state of Washington, for example, has been very, very good about implementing a mandate that supports mask wearing and social distancing, washing your hands. Unfortunately, the state of Washington is very close to the state of Idaho, which, by the way, has no mandate. When you have people moving through a very porous border of these two states, it's inevitable that you will have people, let's say from Idaho, infecting people in eastern Washington, which is by their border, and then from eastern Washington, they drive over to Seattle. And guess what? Here you go. You have now spread. It's just very difficult. The solution, clearly, though, is a national strategy and that is consistent across all states, and as other countries have done. And the evidence that that works can be seen clearly in Singapore, in even poor countries like Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, it works, but you need a national strategy.
And there is hope. President-elect Joe Biden has already formed his COVID task force, and we're hoping that he will exemplify more leadership on this front, as compared to what the current administration is doing. But as a last question, Yobie, as somebody from the inside, getting to know the circles that are doing this, scientists, technologists, what do you think will happen within the next few weeks, within the next few months regarding this virus and to our country?
Boy, that's very tough. Okay. Within the next 4 weeks, for those states that have reinstituted restrictions on mask wearing, social distancing, large crowds, etc., you will almost guarantee that they will see a decline, because it's clear the correlation between compliance with mask wearing is directly related to the decrease or increase of incidences of the virus. I suspect that if we go through this together as a nation and as a people, that we can actually defeat this. But we all have to do it. A lot of the recent surge, for example, started because of Halloween, because there were Halloween parties. and the data shows clearly that the largest source of infection right now are, quote unquote, private gatherings, large gatherings, private, of people and of friends doing a party and saying, well, knowing somebody doesn't mean they don't have the virus. Because remember, in our last conversation, we spoke about the asymptomatic nature of the virus, meaning that you're never sure whether you have it or not, because it will infect you, and you're a carrier. You can infect others as a carrier even if you don't have symptoms. And there are many people, for whatever reason, have the virus, never get a symptom, and get better. And so these people are active carriers. Really, the solution to this relies on everybody working together and observing the simple rules of wearing a mask, socially distant, wash your hands, and avoid crowds.
Right. And we'll end on that note, Yobie. Thank you so much for not failing to remind us every time in our conversations to follow those simple steps, and reminding us that we can all defeat this. We just have to do our share. Thank you.
Salamat. Okay. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.
Everyone is holding their breath for this vaccine, so we are going to pray that it becomes available soon. But in the meantime, there's a new need for safety measures, because the number of COVID cases is now rising again. And because of this, we think about our frontliners, our first responders, most especially our nurses, and our doctors in the hospitals are now getting overworked again. So please, let's keep a moment to pray for them as well. And that's why we thank Toyota for championing our nurses, especially our Filipino nurses. And also thank you to Toyota for making segments like this possible. So today we had a So Informed segment giving us information, because information is especially needed at this time of a global pandemic, but at the same time giving us inspiration by making it possible for us to highlight the stories of the nurses that are working selflessly and tirelessly during this time. Thank you, Toyota, for championing our community. And we'd like to remind everyone too that TOYOTATHON is on. Now's the time for great year-end savings on a reliable new Toyota. You can choose from their wide range, either a Camry Hybrid. Check out amazing deals like low payment leases and special financing at buyatoyota.com or see your Toyota dealer. These deals won't last, so hurry in. We make it easy.